Imagine you are living thousands of years ago. There are no refrigerators, no supermarkets, no plastic containers. But there is one thing humans already have: milk. Early humans learned to domesticate animals such as goats, sheep, and cattle. Milk became an important source of food. But milk has a problem. It doesn't stay fresh forever. In warm conditions, milk can spoil surprisingly quickly. So how did humans discover that milk could be transformed into something completely different? Something solid. Something that could last much longer. Something we now call cheese. The truth is, nobody knows exactly who invented cheese. There probably wasn't one person who suddenly woke up and decided to invent it. Instead, cheese was most likely discovered accidentally through thousands of years of experimentation with milk. And the story may have started with something very simple: a container. Thousands of years ago, people needed ways to carry and store food. They made containers from clay, wood, animal skins, and even animal stomachs. And this last one may have played an important role in the history of cheese. The stomachs of young animals contain a substance called rennet. Rennet contains enzymes that can cause milk to separate into two parts: a solid part called curds, and a liquid part called whey. Today, cheesemakers use carefully controlled versions of these enzymes. But thousands of years ago, people didn't understand the science. They simply may have noticed something strange. Milk that was stored in an animal stomach didn't always remain liquid. Instead, it could turn into soft lumps surrounded by watery liquid. Imagine being an ancient herder and discovering this for the first time. You might look at the strange solid mass and wonder, "Can I eat this?" And when you tasted it, you may have discovered something surprising. It was edible, and it could be stored differently from fresh milk. That simple discovery may have been one of the earliest steps toward cheese. But there's an important mystery. We don't know exactly where or when cheese was first invented. Archaeologists have found evidence of ancient dairy production going back thousands of years. Some of the oldest known evidence connected to cheese production comes from pottery fragments found in areas of ancient Europe. These fragments contain traces of milk fats, suggesting that people were processing dairy products. Cheese may have been invented even earlier. But because cheese is made from organic materials, the earliest examples often disappeared over time. Wood, animal skins, milk, and soft cheese don't survive thousands of years very easily. Pottery, stone, and other durable materials survive much better. That's why archaeologists sometimes have to investigate tiny chemical traces left behind on ancient objects. So why would ancient humans make cheese instead of simply drinking milk? There were several important reasons. First, cheese could last much longer than fresh milk. Second, it was easier to transport. Imagine carrying a heavy container of liquid milk while traveling. Now imagine carrying a smaller, solid piece of cheese instead. Much easier. And third, turning milk into cheese could help preserve its nutrients. For ancient communities, that could be extremely valuable. But making cheese wasn't as simple as leaving milk in a container. People gradually learned that different techniques created different results. They could allow milk to ferment. They could add rennet. They could heat it. They could separate the curds from the whey. They could press the curds. They could add salt. And they could allow the cheese to age. Each step changed the final product. Over generations, people became better at controlling the process. And eventually, cheesemaking became a specialized skill. One of the most important discoveries was fermentation. Tiny microorganisms naturally present in milk can change its chemistry. They consume sugars in the milk and produce acids. As the acidity increases, milk proteins begin to clump together. The liquid milk starts turning into curds. This is one reason some cheeses develop their distinctive taste and texture. Ancient people didn't know about bacteria or microorganisms, but they could observe the results. They could see that milk behaved differently depending on temperature, containers, timing, and environment. So they experimented, and they learned. Then there was another important ingredient: salt. Salt helped preserve food by making it harder for many unwanted microorganisms to grow. Cheesemakers discovered that adding salt could also change the flavor and texture of cheese. Some cheeses were eaten fresh. Others were dried or aged. As cheesemaking techniques improved, people could create many different varieties: soft cheeses, hard cheeses, salty cheeses, aged cheeses, and eventually, cheeses with distinctive flavors and textures. Cheese also became important in ancient civilizations. Ancient Egyptians produced dairy products, and archaeological discoveries have revealed evidence of ancient cheese and other dairy foods. In the Mediterranean world, cheese became an important part of everyday diets. The Romans later helped spread and develop cheese-making techniques across large parts of Europe. Different regions began developing their own traditions. And geography mattered. The animals available in a region affected the milk. The climate affected aging. The local microorganisms affected fermentation. And the ingredients people had available affected the final flavor. That's one reason cheese eventually became incredibly diverse. Think about how strange this is. Today, you can walk into a supermarket and see dozens of different cheeses. But they all come from the same basic idea. Take milk and transform it. The process may involve bacteria, enzymes, salt, temperature, time, and careful handling. But the basic concept is ancient. Over thousands of years, humans continued improving cheesemaking. They developed specific cultures of microorganisms. They learned precise temperatures. They created special aging rooms. They developed molds and presses. They learned how long different cheeses needed to mature. Eventually, cheesemaking became both a science and an art. Modern technology made the process even more precise. Today, cheesemakers can carefully control temperature, acidity, moisture, bacteria, enzymes, and aging conditions. But the basic transformation remains surprisingly similar to what ancient people discovered long ago. So, did one ancient person invent cheese? Probably not. Cheese was likely the result of countless small discoveries made by different people over many generations. Someone discovered that milk could change. Someone noticed that certain containers caused different results. Someone learned that separating curds from whey created a useful food. Someone discovered that salt helped preserve it. Others learned how to age it. And generation after generation, humans improved the process. That's how many ancient inventions were created, not through one magical moment, but through curiosity, accidents, observation, and experimentation. So the next time you eat a slice of cheese, remember that you're eating something connected to a story that began thousands of years ago. A story that started with milk, ancient animals, simple containers, and humans trying to figure out how to keep their food from spoiling. From a mysterious lump of ancient curds to the countless cheeses we enjoy today, cheese is one of humanity's oldest examples of turning a problem into something delicious.